Hello, everybody. You're listening to Money Grows on Trees. I'm your host, Pastor Alfred. Money Grows on Trees is a series of broadcasts that highlight certain portions of information and wisdom in books that I'm currently writing and books that I have already written that have something to do with money. The Money Grows on Trees series is something that will be a great blessing to you and is useful to everybody because everybody deals with money on a daily basis and it controls so much that happens in this world. It is also a very important thing that without which the gospel cannot be preached. It is something that also determines the happiness and the of every people in this world, and also it determines also and says a lot about how the gospel is doing and how God is working in the lives of people. Because you see, if there is no money in a nation, if there is no money amongst the people, there will be unhappiness. There are a lot of people who like to say things that money does not bring happiness. That is very interesting, but I can certainly tell you that the absence of money is a catalyst for unhappiness. You see, that is just the facts and that is just the truth. You must understand that important facts. Also, I say that it also speaks of how the gospel is doing and how God is working in the lives of people. You see, because if there's no prosperity, if the people of God do not have money, then how can you say God is working in their life? You see, because they are not even blessed. How can people be serving God? How can people be pleasing God? And yet they are hungry and starving and dying of hunger. You see, how can they be in lack? You know, the scripture says, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. God is God. God is bigger than any king. God has so much. God is super wealthy. You see, God is the owner of the whole world. So how can his children be in poverty? And what makes people think that God delights to see his children in poverty? I mean, if your father was a king, if your father was the wealthiest man in the world, or anybody on the Forbes list, and you are living in poverty and you can't pay rent in one rundown apartment that you are living in, can you boldly say that your father loves you? You can't. Your father cannot have billions of dollars and you are living in poverty and then you believe that your father loves you. You will doubt the love. Then think about God, how much more God has. God is God. God spoke this whole world into being. Everything that we see around us was created by God in only 7 days. All this that we see around us that has lasted for millennia. You know, some people are worried and are coming up with theories and saying things like, soon the sun will run out of energy. And that is after billions and billions and billions of years that the sun will eventually run out of energy. All of that, apart from the fact that that is not really proven, let us assume that it is so. Guess what? All of that was created in only 7 days. So the same one who created the sun in only 1 day out of those 7 days and created this whole world can always create another sun or even give more energy to the current sun to last another set of trillions or billions of years or whatever people want to say that measurement is, you know, if we are going by that measurement. You see, so This is something that you must understand, and this is why series like the Money Grows on Trees series is very important. So it helps to revitalize and inspire and increase what God is doing in the lives of Christians in the area of finances all around the world. Because you see, when Christians are empowered financially, then we can truly impact the world, and then we can really use our resources to make a difference in this world. So much good has been done already by Christians. So much good has been done already by wealth in the hands of Christians. You see, a lot of charities are running off of Christian beliefs. If Christian beliefs did not exist, a lot of charities will not exist. The Salvation Army, Red Cross, and so many others. As a matter of fact, the concept of charity began in Christianity. When I talk about charity, I mean organized charity, like starting an organization that's focusing on helping people, helping the needy and helping the poor. That was invented by Christianity, but actually the Catholic Church, you see, that is something that you must understand. It does not come from anywhere else, and it is irrational. Let me explain how it is irrational. If, for example, a country decides to go and help the poor in another country, what about the poor in its own country? What about the needs in its own country? You see, it has its own needs. It's not thinking about itself in this case. It's thinking about others. It wants other nations to prosper. Just like when an individual is charitable, he's not thinking about his own needs. He's thinking about helping others. Don't think that because somebody is giving out millions and billions that they do not have their own financial needs. You see, no amount of money is ever enough. The truth of the matter is that no matter who you are, you will always have a desire or an aspiration that will require more money. No matter who you are. Even if you are a multi-billionaire who owns properties all around the world, you will still have projects that will require more billions and more millions of dollars, and of course a lot of your money is tied down in other projects. And even if you were to merge it all together, there are still aspirations and things that you need to do, that you would want to do, that in many cases you will have to do, and you're doing it to save millions of lives or create millions of jobs or even billions of jobs. You see, but you will still need money for that. You see, that is why millionaires and billionaires still go to banks to borrow money. You see, that money they are borrowing, they know they have to pay it back, and also with interest. If they had it themselves, they would not go and borrow from the banks. If they had all that money themselves, they will not call for investors. They will not give out shares in their company and tell people to buy into the shares. They will just keep it for themselves and use their own money to grow their business. But you see, that is the reality. Everybody, no matter how wealthy someone gets, that person will always be in a position where there is more money that will be required. So that is something that you must know and you must keep in mind. God's children having money is a testament of what God is doing in their lives. And with the more money that God's children make, the more they can use it to advance the gospel and also reshape the world. A lot of what we see in the world around us, a lot of the disaster, a lot of the darkness that we see, a lot of the foolishness that is going around, when we look at what is happening around the world in the society, is actually because a lot of money is in the hands of evil men. A lot of money is in the hands of non-Christians. A lot of money is in the hands of people who hate God, people who hate Christianity, people who are against the spread of the gospel. when such people who have their ideologies that are out of line with the Bible and ideologies that are actually anti the Bible, we see the kind of problems that we currently have all around the world. You see, and that is why series like this is really very important and should not be taken lightly. Make sure you tell your friends about it, spread the word, share the word. Also, get copies of Money Grows on Trees, the book itself. That book is very important. It is classic. It is revolutionary. It is a book that a lot of testimonies has come from. It's a book that you cannot read and digest without getting testimonies from your reading and digesting that book. Money Grows on Trees is quite honestly one of the most important books on finances in centuries, that has ever hit this world. It is something that you must get, and also get copies for your friends. And you can easily go to pastoralfred.com for more info on that. That's pastoralfred.com. Anyway, the topic I would like to talk about today is on the fact that one proud descendant can destroy your dynasty. When you follow the series that I do, the Money Grows on Trees series that I do, and when you also read the book, you will see that one of the things that I talk about is generational wealth building. It is not just about you building money for yourself, but you have to think years ahead into the future. What is your dynasty going to be like 500 years from now? What is your dynasty going to be like 1,000 years from now? What is your dynasty going to be like 50,000 years from now? You have to think and plan, because you see, the world belongs to those who plan. And the truth of the matter is that the fact that you are not planning ahead this far doesn't mean that others are not. And the families that have ruled the world and have dominated and have grown increasingly are families that have had a plan that are actually centuries old. When your family has a financial plan for the entire family that runs down to your descendants and your descendants and their descendants, and they have a constitution, a set of principles that guides them and helps to ensure that they have the right mindsets, belief systems, and ideologies, especially about money, that will necessitate and help the management and the maintenance of that financial plan, you would find yourself in a position where years from now, your descendant's name, your last name, will be extremely powerful around the world. And that is just a fact. You see, there is no going around it. You see, you can research a lot of the powerful families and see that is actually what happens, especially when it comes to kings and royalties. A lot of people do not think far ahead. They do not even think 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead, 15 years ahead. You may be listening to this now and you don't have a college degree, or you do not have a master's degree, or for whatever reason there are certain degrees that you do not have that you might wish you have. Guess what? Those degrees, a lot of them take 3 years, 4 years to get. And guess what? 3 years from now will certainly come. 4 years from now will certainly come. So what's going to happen when it comes? Are you going to have that degree or not? You see, it's all up to you. That time will surely pass. In the same way, you will surely have descendants. You will surely have great-grandchildren. Their children and your children's children will surely have children's children. You see, but what plans are you making for those people? When you are perhaps not on earth anymore, what will your descendants be doing financially? How will they be faring? Have your plans extended into what they will be and what they will look like? You see, there are a lot of people who come up with silly notions and silly belief systems that come from silly movies that paint people who are old-fashioned and people who try to influence who their children marry and how their children live their life. They try their best to paint that black. They try their best to paint that as evil. They try their best to paint that as wrong. Like, let us look at the concept of an arranged marriage, for example. We all know what an arranged marriage is. When the parents decide that this person will marry this person, a lot of times without the consent of the child involved. Let us look at it, for example. Now that that has been so demonized, has marriage improved? What is marriage like today? You see, what does marriage look like today? Now, marriage is now something that people are marrying and they are planning for divorce on the same day. You see, as they are marrying, they are signing prenup. Their marriage, on the same day they are signing a marriage certificate, they are also signing a legal document to make provision for what will happen when they divorce. That is what a prenuptial agreement basically is. You see, so that is now what marriage has turned into, because now children are making decisions for themselves in that area. You must understand the original concept of an arranged marriage and the advantage that it had, that this current state of things and the idea of demonizing it has brought. The concept is that a parent sees and has researched with their wisdom and with their age. They have researched and they understand the family that they want their child to marry from. You see, they are a party that is independent of the love matter. You see, their decisions are not guided by emotions of love and romantic feelings. You see, they are the parents of the child. So they are looking at every other thing that is important to make that decision that this is the right person for you to marry. They can see it, but their decision is free from the influence of romance and love. It is based on practical things that they see and how well the jigsaw puzzle fits. However, when people are making decisions on their own, a lot of times, majority of the times, because it is another matter for them to have the discipline, for them to not be influenced by romance and love. When somebody is deeply in love with another person, let's say a man is deeply in love with a woman or has romantic feelings for her, he may not look at practical things like this woman was promiscuous, this woman has these issues, this woman has this and this and this and all of that. This is not compatible with what he is trying to build. This kind of woman is not going to make a good mother or a good wife. You see, and vice versa. A lot of women can fall in love with a man and they do not see that this person, all his previous relationship, he has been abusive to all the women. He beats women, he abuses women and all kinds of things. He's super promiscuous and there is no evidence that this person who has always been a playboy. And you know, a lot of people think that when you put a ring, when a playboy puts a ring on a woman's finger, he will automatically stop being a playboy. No, he has been a playboy. He will always be a playboy. It's like smoking. When somebody starts smoking and has become addicted to smoking, what makes you think that he will automatically just stop smoking at the snap of a finger? You see, in the same way, what makes you think that a man who is a playboy, who has always been sleeping with all kinds of women and he's a professional in it, he knows how to seduce any woman in 2 seconds? What makes you think that the day he finds one woman he wants to marry, that day all the desires and all his abilities in seducing and sleeping with all the women all around him and beyond is going to stop? You see, it's not going to stop. But an outside party can see these things and look at all these things because they are not influenced by love. But a woman can be swept off her feet and decide to marry based on that. So now you must understand what I'm saying. I am not saying that people should not be involved in the decision of who they want to marry, and they should leave it up to their parents or to outside bodies. But I'm saying that because of your love and because of your emotional involvement in the decision, that is going to blind you from looking at other things which are actually more important than your romantic feelings and all of that, because that does not have a bearing on anything. You see, how you feel about somebody is not going to put food on your table. How you feel about somebody is not going to determine whether they beat you at home or not. How you feel about somebody is not going to determine whether that person has good manners or will be a good mother or a good father or a good wife, a good husband. You see, but those feelings cloud things. So the condemnation of arranged marriage and things of that nature and certain things that are old-fashioned, before you attack something or you go against something, you must really study to understand it. Now, am I saying that parents should have 100% control and influence over who their children marry? No, that is not what I'm saying. I'm just pointing out to you the fact that spirit that led to the condemnation of arranged marriage, how it has destroyed and how it sought to destroy marriages in general, and what it has actually done today, and people do not notice. And I'm also highlighting to you the advantages of parents or outside bodies and what they actually brought to the table, so you can look at that concept differently. That is the same way with a lot of old ideas, you see. And naturally, I'm talking about building a dynasty. For you to build a dynasty, you must have a set of rules about who your family is allowed to marry, the kind of people that your family is about to marry, because that extends into your dynasty. That actually determines a lot in your dynasty. You must have a set of rules. I call it has to be part of your constitution, you see, of your family, that determines who they are allowed to marry. And this is your great-great-great-grandchildren. So you may not be here, but they have to abide by those rules. And you can see why it was important for me to address the issue of arranged marriage, because a lot of people will not like that. Imagine a scenario where you are building a dynasty, and for generations you have been building millions and millions, and your children has been becoming richer and richer. Then suddenly somebody in your dynasty, somebody in your bloodline goes and marries a communist. What happens to all that wealth? It will disappear, because now you have married into your family somebody that is against the rich, somebody that is against capitalism. And what you are doing is at the very core capitalism. Building your dynasty financially is capitalism at its core. It is just straight up capitalism, you see. And it's one of the blessings of capitalism that it gives you the ability to build up your family financially for generations and generations and generations. Now, introducing a communist in that destroys it. Or introducing somebody who does not respect accounting. Let us say that part of the plan that you came up with was heavily based on the understanding of accounting, and none of you has been spendthrift, none of you have been spenders, none of you has been squanderers, which is very important. No matter what plan you come up with, nobody in your dynasty should be a squanderer, because if one person in your dynasty is a squanderer, the millions that you have amassed will just disappear or greatly decrease. Let us say that your wealth, your generational wealth after 3 or 4 generations has gone into billions, and I'm talking about the one that you built, you passed on to your descendants, they inherited it. The one that they built added to that one that they inherited. Then all of that passed down and it's being built and it keeps increasing. Then now you introduce a squanderer. Somebody in your dynasty, in your bloodline now marries a squanderer. That person will now spend money stupidly, and it destroys what you have been building for generations and generations. You see, so naturally a squanderer cannot be involved in that equation. As a matter of fact, when you think about a lot of old families, from Britain, from Great Britain. Now I'm talking about descendants of knights who fought in wars and battles. You see, there were a lot of men who made money from the gold and mining industry. You know, when we talk about finding gold and finding a lot of all these resources, as a matter of fact, even South Africa, the white men who went to South Africa that owned gold mines, what happened to majority of the gold that they brought back home? A lot of them ended up having descendants that squandered everything, especially via gambling. What happened to the wealth of a lot of generations of knights and royalty who went to wars and came back with plunder of trucks and loads of gold? As in, they came with carriages and horses that are carrying bags of gold and gold and gold. That wealth should have increased. All of that should have been invested and kept increasing with each generation. But what happened to all of that? A lot of them had gamblers in their family. Somewhere in their dynasty, there was one gambler that just gambled away kingdoms. For those of you who do not know, gambling is banned in Buckingham Palace. The Queen of England banned, I don't know whether it is the current Queen of England or her mother, one of them. It's either Queen Elizabeth or her mom that banned gambling in Buckingham Palace. Gambling is not allowed. And the problem of that is that with gambling, a lot of money can be easily lost because a lot of people are delusional, and whatever they are betting, they are so confident that they will make it. And because of that, people have gambled away kingdoms and a lot of land. And this is land that people are living. And when you gamble away land and such things so easily, ownership is changing hands and destinies are changing hands so powerfully. And the people who are living in those areas are seriously affected by whatever the new owner chooses to do. You see, so it is things like that that made the Queen of England ban gambling. It is not allowed in Buckingham Palace, and a lot of the royals are not actually permitted to gamble. You see, because when you are gambling with all that land, and this is something that, think about back in the day when monarchy was really prevalent, and that was the government. There was no democracy. Imagine a king gambling. What kind of danger is that? A king can gamble away half of a city. A king can gamble away an entire city. A king can even be so stupid that he will gamble away his entire kingdom. So you can see things like that is extremely destructive. When you introduce somebody like that into your dynasty, you destroy everything that you have been building for generations. People talk about families like the Johnson & Johnson family, the Rothschild family, the Rockefeller family, and they talk about how they have so much money and they rule the world and blah 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 and all those kind of things. But I have a question for you. What of your own parents? What of your own great grandparents? You see, you did not fall from the sky. No matter what you think, you did not fall from the sky. No matter what you think, you had an ancestor that was on earth on the same day that the first Johnson & Johnson chose to start his own company. Why didn't that ancestor of yours start his own company? And a lot of these people started their company with basically nothing and with nickels and dimes. What was your own ancestors doing? You see, when Lord Nathan Rothschild started his own bank, what was your own ancestors doing? Because your own ancestors were on earth. What were they doing? You see, what were they doing? When JP Morgan started his bank and became one of the wealthiest men in America during his day in his time, and to today people still use his bank. When he was starting his company, don't you know that your ancestors were also on this earth? What were they doing? Now, the story can be put on you, because there are people today who are starting companies that years and years from now will be multi-trillion-dollar companies. What are you doing now? You see, that will be the question that somebody like me will be asking your descendants. You see, but a lot of people do not think like this, and a lot of people do not see this. This is a fact. So you must understand that you seriously have to make sure that there is no weak link in your dynasty, because it is your responsibility. One of the things that you would see in the book that I wrote, Money Grows on Trees, on this dynasty building, proves that within 2 generations, every human being in this world should be a millionaire. Every human being in this world should be a millionaire. If after 2 generations, if your great-grandchild is not a millionaire, it is your fault. Or you probably did not read my book or see what I talked about or know what I talked about on that particular chapter and aspect of wealth building when it comes to dynasty. You see, this is something that is very important. You may be somebody who is fooled, and a lot of people today are fooled by being occupied by complaints. Who knows? Maybe when JP Morgan was starting his own bank, your ancestor was complaining about the social issues of the day and using that as an excuse of why he cannot move forward and start his own bank. You see? That's the truth of the matter. Just like today, there are some people who are obsessed, especially a lot of black people. They are obsessed with, because the white man made black people slaves thousands and thousands of years ago, that is why we are in the struggle. This and this is so difficult, that and that is so difficult. But there are people who are starting companies of your own race. People even in poorer countries and in poorer cultures than you are starting companies and succeeding. But you are occupying yourself with social complaints that do not affect you as an individual and do not really stop you as an individual from making a lot of money. You see? Maybe that is what your ancestor was doing when JP Morgan was starting his own business. Maybe that is what your ancestor was doing when Rockefeller was starting his own company. Maybe that is what your ancestor was doing when others were starting their own company. Let us even talk about slavery for a moment. Are you aware that there are a lot of people who were, when they were slaves, they were making money? During the slave trade, as slaves, they were making money. They were still slaves, but they were making money. Those of you who do not understand that is also because of the kind of research that you do and where you do your research. But you must understand that blacks were making money. There were blacks who were making money from selling black people to white people. There were blacks who were making money from owning slaves themselves. Then there were black slaves themselves who were working for masters who did things on the side that they were paid for. There were black people that also managed a lot of the master's wealth. And there's also the fact that you must understand a very important truth about slavery that is kept aside about black slavery. It is the fact that a lot of black slaves were actually the mistresses and the wives of white men. So the truth of the matter is that it is not just a matter of the blacks that you see being mixed. A lot of white people are mixed. There are a lot of people who are very white. In their mind, they think they are very white. But if it were possible for them to do real and honest research, because most of these things is only God that can tell, or if they were to do a scientific test on their blood that can tell of people's genetics, they will see that they actually have black ancestors. A lot of white people today in America are actually descendants of black slaves. The truth of the matter of that slavery that you have to understand is that when it comes to women, why do you think that white slave masters were buying black female slaves? What is the use of a black female slave? Think about it. What is the use? They're not buying it for the male slaves, because you see, that is a very stupid plan. Because first of all, they did not care about who the male slave would like to sleep with, and they do not care about their sexual needs or desires. That is just the fact. You see, when you buy a dog, do you also buy a female dog? When you buy a male dog, and you do not buy you buy a dog that you like. A lot of people, they buy a female dog. Do they bother to buy a male dog? That is it, and they care so much about their dog. Do you think about the fact that that dog does not have a mate or a partner? In the same way, even worse, the slavery issue. When a white man bought a white slave master bought a black slave, the last thing was on his mind was like, let me buy also a black slave for this person so that he will not feel lonely and so that he can be paid. That never happened. You see, and if any white slave master thought like that, then he will take the black man with him to the market to pick for himself the black female slave that he will like. So it will be actually the black man who is choosing which female slave should be bought, and it will be like a gift to him. You see, but you see that did not happen. The real reason why a lot of black female slaves were bought were for marriage, and so that also they will be mistresses. But majority of them married. You must understand that in those days, they did not have the accounting system and the recording system that we have now. But a lot of those black women were married to wise men. So they were also giving money. Legally, on paper, they were the property of the man. But these people had money. And I'm talking about black slaves. That is why if you do your research, you will see that some black slaves actually had physical cash. Even though it was not much, they had. You see? So that is just the fact. They were workers. They were hired and treated like cattle. But you must understand these dynamics of the fact that this is one major thing that happened in the slavery era. It's when it comes to the female slaves were not bought for male slaves. The female slaves were bought for white men. You see, and that is why you can look at when you look at a lot of African Americans, or so called. When you look at them and look at Africans, you can see that they look very differently. They do not look alike. If we bring any bunch of African Americans and try to pair them with how they resemble other tribes, every tribe in Africa, you cannot see any group that they specifically match. And that is because of the mixing. A lot of them have white genes. A lot of them have white ancestors. If not, I would say 99.9% of all African Americans have a white ancestor somewhere in their family tree. You see, so that I'm just telling you is to point out the fact that even if you were a slave or whatever, or you want to use that excuse of you are a descendant of slaves, and that so that time that Rothschild and Rockefeller were building their companies, perhaps your own ancestors were slaves. If you want to use that excuse, I'm just showing you that your ancestors also had access to ownership of money. And a lot of them actually owned money. When you look at certain pictures of France, you see that the French, they have always been different, in their own way. Some Frenchmen married openly black slaves that they bought, and they did not treat them like slaves, and they dressed them like the white women also. That is just the facts. But all these things are not talked about, and that is the main reason when it comes to women, the black women. Because if you are buying if you are into race horsing and you are buying horses, you buy horses that run fast. You are not interested in buying female horses that will now keep the company of the male horses that run fast, or if it's a female horse that runs fast, you will not be interested in buying a male horse to pair with the female horse that runs fast, just for the sake of let the horse not be lonely. And when people are looked upon like cattle, it's those same principles that matter. So the explanation and the truth behind the buying of black female slaves, it was for the white man. That is why they were bought, and that is why they were shipped. It was the men that were doing the work. The men were needed to do the work. The picking of cotton and all the hard labor. Those were the ones that were needed to do the work, but the women were not needed for that kind of work. or any kind of work, to be honest. Even when it comes to managing indoor affairs, that is just the truth. The women were not needed for that. You see, especially slaves, because you must understand that the new slaves were people who came with their own ideology and their own way of doing things. They would need to be re-educated, but it's the ones that were already there, who were born into slavery, who were born into this new new white culture, that were the ones that served inside the house. You see, nobody was going to the slave market to buy black female slaves to bring into their house to serve them. That was not the major thing that was on anybody's mind. And that will only lead to, because there will have to be a lot of re-education. You see, so the main purpose, and you also have to understand that these black slaves did not even speak English or understand English. So it was mostly their descendants that were easier for the white man to communicate with and to talk to and to teach and to have their ideologies and to really serve them. And that is where they got more loyalty from. Somebody who was born a slave is more likely to be loyal than somebody who was always free. Then suddenly they became a slave. That one will now be thinking of running away because they know what freedom is like. You know, if you were born into a prison and you think that the whole world is a prison, that is all you know. You will not try to run away. You will not think about leaving the prison. You see, your mind is not really there because you do not know really, you are not aware of the outside world. It is somebody who has tasted freedom and has enjoyed freedom that when that person is put in prison, that person misses the freedom and wants to go back to the freedom. You see, you cannot miss what you have never experienced before. So the loyalty that permitted that kind of in-house service, an appropriate service according to what they would have wanted, was the ones that they got from the descendants who had always been here. This like second generation slaves and third generation slaves, not first generation slaves who were just off the ship. Those ones were mostly, the main motivation was for the wise man for marriage, or to treat, or even though they may not legally marry them, they lived as though that person was the wife and all of that, and all those women bore them a lot of children. You see, so that is why when you see a lot of African Americans, and you compare them to Africans, you cannot put them anywhere. They are not classified. You cannot see the resemblance. But you pick somebody from Africa and you look at the different tribes and you can see which tribe that person actually comes from based on the way certain facial features are. Just like when you look at Asians, you can really tell, it is very pronounced among Asians that person is from Asia. It is the same with Africa and the tribes that people are from. You see, so even countries in Africa that people are from. So that is just the fact of the matter. And I'm saying this so that you can really understand that nobody has any excuse. You see, your ancestors were on earth when every other person was building their own dynasty. There's no multi-billionaire that you can claim is ruling the world or has so much influence and money and power in this world that when they were building their company, when their ancestors were building their company, your ancestors was not here and able to build his own company. You see, immediately after slavery stopped, again, to go back to that topic, you must understand that there are quite a number of, perhaps there were a few, but there was a number of people that actually made millions who are black. Because you see, a lot of the people did not trust or want to associate with other races. There were a lot of blacks who did not trust whites, and there were a lot of whites who did not trust blacks. You know, as a matter of fact, that's introduced the era of segregation. And in that era of segregation, and even going as far as them having, this is toothpaste for white people, this is toothpaste for black people. You see, all those kind of things created opportunities that only blacks could take advantage of. Because you see, white doctors, for example, did not prefer or did not like to deal with blacks. They would prefer to have white patients. And even though as doctors, a lot of them served whoever came in, you must understand that there was segregation. So there were hospitals that black people were not even allowed to enter in the first place. So you can imagine a white doctor in that hospital and him preferring to just have white patients. So that creates, actually, you may say that's a bad thing. Yes, that's a bad thing, but that actually also creates an opportunity, a great opportunity, because now we now have a lot of people who are black who are making money and who do not have enough doctors that want to attend to them, because the doctors are preferring to treat just whites. And that is an opportunity that a lot of people took advantage of. Like, for example, there is a certain black whose name I won't call, who started a funeral service. And you can imagine this is the era of segregation and real racism, not the joke that is happening today that people call racism. I'm talking about real racism. This was the things that Martin Luther King had to fight against. You see, in that era of segregation, there was a black man who started a funeral service, because you see, a lot of blacks looked at it as a defeat for them to carry their dead black people when their parents died or their grandparents died or when their children died. They took it as such a defeat to take that dead body to a white man to go and bury. You see, so a black man who actually started a funeral service became one of the first multi-millionaires in that era. That was an opportunity. In the same way, with what I said about hospitals, there's actually a black gentleman who started his pharmacy. He learned from the whites, and he was actually supplied drugs from a white pharmaceutical company, but the white pharmacist that supplied him drugs and medicine did it behind the scenes, not in front of the customers, because when certain companies and certain businesses were targeted at white people, those white people did not want to enter a business and see also black customers there. So, but that kind of scenario creates a great opportunity. Imagine a situation where people have no choice but to buy products from you. Because you see, now we had complete businesses that had to cater to only black people. Because you see, black people were making money during that time because they were filling a lot of the blue collar and lower income jobs. You see, and that was the era of hard work. This was post World War II, I believe, around that era, that World War I, World War II era. Those eras, people believed in hard work and people worked very hard. It was common. People did not even say the words hard work like that, because everybody was hardworking. Everybody understood that they had to work hard, and people worked and worked and worked and worked in those days. It is not like now that they have to preach sermons on hard work for somebody to begin to work hard, and they have to preach like 30 or 50 sermons on hard work before somebody finally decides, let me try this hard work thing. In those days, people had to work hard. So you see, blacks were making money. They were not paid as high salary as some or most whites, but they were still making money, and they still had needs like others. They still needed toothpaste. They still needed medical supplies and all of that. They still needed banks. One of the first and the current wealthiest black billionaires in America today is actually a descendant of the first black-owned banker, the man who started the first black-owned bank. Because like I told you about segregation, black people obviously were making money and they needed banking services. So what happens in a place where if they go in, it is owned by white people who do not want to associate with them, and then even the white customers do not like being in a place where there are also black people. So imagine somebody starting a black bank, a bank that caters to black people, is owned by blacks and all of that. And to today, his dynasty, his bloodline is still the wealthiest black family in America today. You see, so what I'm trying to really let you understand is that there is really no excuse. Your ancestors were here when JP Morgan was starting his own bank and everything. There's really no excuse. You have heard the phrase, where there's a will, there's a way. So in the same way, there have always been ways for people to advance and move forward. And when you are making these plans and planning to advance, you should think about your dynasty, not just yourself, because some kinds of wealth that is to be built cannot be built by you alone in one generation. It has to be built by 10 or 50 generations. So technically, as I have said, and as you will see proven with beyond a doubt, when you read a copy of my book, Money Grows on Trees, you will see it yourself that there is no way that 2 generations can pass by without you becoming a millionaire. It is compulsory. If you follow what I wrote there, you will see it. You will become millionaires. Then, by the time it moves into fourth successive generations, imagine how that wealth will grow. And this broadcast, I'm talking about the importance of maintaining that wealth within your dynasty. Now imagine a world, because there are some people that may listen to this and they may be put off by the fact that I'm talking about certain people who are rich getting richer and building such wealth. The question is, how about you? Why are you not building such wealth? You see, everybody has the opportunity to do this. Even the homeless person at the side of the road can start it. If someone is homeless, give them a copy of my book, Money Grows on Trees. For them that will read it, I'm very interested to hear the stories that they will tell after they read it and they understand it and they start applying what they read in the book Money Grows on Trees. It's a short book. It is not a book that requires days or weeks of reading. You can finish that book in 30 minutes, at most 60 minutes. It's a quick book. It's quick to read and it goes straight to the point and the facts are so clear. You see, you cannot argue with them. Everything is just clean and pristine. There is no book like that. I'm not trying to brag. You see, that book was given to me by the Holy Spirit. It is by God's grace and God's power that book was written. It is God that wants you to have that book. It is God that wants you to read that book. And the book is not expensive. There's even a free sample download that is available at pastoralfred.com. So you can get a free sample download and look at it. You see, so get a copy of that book. Make sure you study that book and read that book. You yourself should be building generational wealth. This is something that applies to everybody. Nobody has an excuse. Nobody has a viable excuse. This is not something that you read and say, you're helping the rich get richer and you're supporting just the 1% and all of that. No, this is everybody. Everybody who is a part of the 1% who are super wealthy are descendants, or they themselves were once upon a time not a part of that 1%. Most of them were actually in abject poverty. But you see, something happened that changed their mindset and it changed how they saw life and eventually changed their lifestyle and their life choices and got them to that 1%. That can be you too. This is something that applies to everybody. 1 + 1 we always make 2. 2 + 2 we always make 4. 4 + 4 we always make 8. These are laws. These are principles. These are things that we always work. It's not a respecter of persons. You see? So you should get a copy of Money Grows on Trees. Read it and study it. And you must apply that and you will see the results. You must do all you can to preserve that generational and dynasty wealth building throughout your entire dynasty. So that's it for today. Make sure you go to pastoralfred.com and get a copy of Money Grows on Trees. It's very important that you do so. Read it and be blessed. See you again next time, and God bless you.